So the great thing about Tru Center is that it shows things that other tools just don't show. And primarily it's your core motivations. It's what truly, truly drives you when you're at your best. And so we really look for those patterns of joy, patterns of fruitfulness that point to how God has uniquely wired someone for his good intention.
Welcome to the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Bryant. In every episode, we bring in guests who will inspire, encourage you to be more effective in your mission field. On today's episode of the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast, I have back with me Dr. Tim Yee. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you. You've done so much for us over the last few years, helping us understand our motivations through Tru Center. It's a fantastic assessment. We're giving away free assessments for anyone who's getting the email newsletter. Make sure you're signed up for that at ericbryant.org. But Tim, I want to dive a little bit deeper. You've been taking lots of church leaders, lots of volunteers at churches through this assessment. It's the only story-driven assessment I know of dealing with our motivations. Maybe talk about kind of the updates to the assessment, because there's now kind of 8 categories that you can start to understand yourself a little better through.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks, Eric, for being a longtime user of Tru Center. So you've seen our tool grow and evolve. In many ways, it's grown and evolved towards our 60 years of research, which always had kind of these 8 families, and they've been called different things in different iterations. But the 8 dimensions really kind of roll up all 32 into 8 different categories. And it's a way to simplify things. As you know, when you have 32 motivations, and we give the top 5 of the 32 for each individual, I mean, that's close to like 1 in 28 million, different iterations of the combination of the 5 of the 32 when you do that math. And that's wonderful when you want to do a deep dive onto what makes Eric Bryant tick, what drives you, what makes you a great leader, how has God shaped and formed you, wired you for service. Super fantastic insight. Now, when you take that and say, well, how do I apply that to my team? Well, you take a look at your team members, their top 32, their top 5 out of those. Well, again, 1 in 27 million difference is some real amazing opportunities to see those differences. But with the dimensions, it simplifies. It's just 1 of 8. And so we can say, Eric, you show up in this way. Someone else in your ministry shows up a little bit different way. We can talk more easily about some of the similarities and differences. And so happy to dive in.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about those 8. Yeah, talk about those 8 and which are some of the more common ones you see for pastors.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So the first thing I would say is no matter what your top dimensions are, everyone is gifted amazingly, right? And so you're going to see a variation of all kinds of different motivations that lead to the dimensions. And so if you are a number 1, let's say, achiever in the dimension category, yeah, you'll make a great pastor. And so will someone who's a number 1 driver. And so will someone who's a number 1 relator, right? So we don't want to make it sound like there's only 1 of the 8 or 3 of the 8 that make a great pastor, or even particularly like a senior pastor or an executive pastor. You could be a mix of any one of those 8. At the same time, as I've done this, obviously hundreds of times with hundreds of pastors, I would say more than one that sticks up as the number 1. I would say there are a couple that are hard to find in their top 3. And I think that's the most important thing to point out for today would be that.
That's good. Well, I'd love to just maybe dive in a little bit more. For those who have not taken this assessment, what have you seen? Certainly, what are some of the more unique motivations that maybe this will reveal? But how have you seen people knowing their motivations, how it helps them be more effective or faithful in what their calling is?
Right. Well, the beauty about our tool, and I know because you're a huge fan of it, is it works great with other tools. So first of all, I know, Eric, you and I, we've been in ministry for 3 decades plus, and so what that looks like is we used a lot of tools over the years, and we continue to use them because they're helpful. So the great thing is about Tru Center, it's a great tool that can work alongside other tools if your ministry or your church is already committed to one of them. The great advantage of it, though, is that it shows things that other tools just don't show. And primarily it's your core motivations. It's what truly drives you when you're at your best. And so we really look for those patterns of joy, patterns of fruitfulness that point to how God has uniquely wired someone for his good intentions, and so that's significant to find those patterns of joy, the patterns of fruitfulness. There's some other tools that might be very good at showing the patterns of brokenness. I think that's a great tool. You want to know your pattern of brokenness, and you and I might use some of those tools, but Tru Center really gets to the pattern of fruitfulness, the pattern of joy. So that's how I would sum up the unique differences. And as you know, how do we do it? How do we get so accurate? How do we do this so quickly? Well, we use stories. We actually will take 3 stories from a leader like you, Eric, and we analyze them. And then through those stories, we find those patterns of fruitfulness, of how God has wired someone uniquely.
Well, and for me, certainly I benefited personally just knowing my motivations. I think it was super insightful. And then to have you come and take my team through it was just a whole nother level of learning how to team better and collaborate better and serve each other. It was incredibly helpful. And then I've gone on to learn how to be a facilitator, maybe for the pastor who's interested in having you come in and share with their team, or even becoming a facilitator. What's the process for that? And how have you seen kind of this team orientation with motivations help church leaders?
Right. Well, first of all, yeah, we love it, Eric, that you, along with many others, have chosen to take the certified facilitator path. It's very easy to do. First of all, you should just experience Tru Center. So for those listening or watching, take advantage of Eric's very generous offer to take the Tru Center assessment for free. It's awesome. You'll love it. And then you might be lucky enough to get a coaching feedback from Eric as well. So he'll tell you more about that for sure. So the first thing is experience the assessment for yourself, experience the feedback, from someone like Eric or myself, and then you're going to fall in love with it. And it's actually very simple. And we made it simple because of the feedback from great coaches and leaders like you, Eric, where we have a series of videos that I've made, and we have a facilitator's guide. And so you pay a very affordable rate of $299 for right now. This is 2025. And we did that purposely because we're trying to get obviously more and more people on the facilitator track. I'm actually in the process of training hundreds of facilitators over the next 6 months, which is great. So take advantage of, first of all, that price. And then there's self-guided videos. You watch a set of videos I've made. You have the facilitator's guide. And then, as you know, and as you have done, you simply need to practice. Go practice using the tools, log some hours in coaching, and then have a final phone call, Zoom call with me to seal the deal in terms of the facilitator training. And we're just seeing some really great impacts from that. I'm in the middle of training 60 different organizations right now in Tru Center in 2025 for a real big 2026 launch. And so we're excited about that. So we've made it super easy. You could be a solo pastor, or you could be the head of a parachurch organization. We're training all kinds of different certified facilitators, and we're seeing some really great impact and fruit from it.
So keep an eye out for my email newsletter so you can get the assessment for free. If you want to explore it a little bit, trucenter.co. That's trucenter.co. And of course, Tim can be found at drtimyee.com. Well, you're talking about a big launch. Maybe share how Tru Center is getting involved with Urbana.
Yeah, thanks for that great lead. And yeah, we are excited that we are one of the main sponsors for the historic, amazing missionary conference called Urbana. It's actually the location this year is not in Urbana, which is an actual location, a city, but in Phoenix. And so December 2025, right after Christmas. Right now we're tracking to see near about 10,000 students to register for that event. And I'm in the midst of training, several hundred leaders in Tru Center in preparation, because every single student who's registered for the event that shows up and every leader will have taken Tru Center. So that's an amazing thing that's going to happen Never seen that happen at a conference before, where every conference attendee participant, especially at this level, of course, right, 10,000, are all taking the same assessment. On their name badge will be their top five, motivations, and then we're going to have sessions, breakout sessions that are geared towards understanding your top five motivations, understanding the 8 dimensions, understanding how teams work together. How does this impact your sense of call? How do you find that right fit, whether for a global mission agency or maybe for a mission project that is closer to home, or even in your workplace, right? How do I be a missionary in the very place that I work, right, in my everyday life? And so we're showing how the tool is amazing for ministries, missionaries, for those who are doing business as mission, people who are in the corporate world, people who are also doing hands-on work, right? Artisans and crafts people, etc. It all applies to your teams and to your individual sense of call. We just want people to know how God has wired them for service and how to work with others as we continue to glorify God and revealing his kingdom on earth. And so we're excited about that opportunity with Urbana. They're being so gracious with us, and we are happy and excited to be one of the main sponsors for this amazing missions conference. If those are listeners who've never heard about it, just go ahead and do a little search online and read about the great history. There was one point where Billy Graham said something like this. He said 50% of all the missionaries he knows can trace their roots to our Urbana Missions Conference. There was a time when it had that much impact in terms of helping to support sending people out towards the Great Commission. And we are just hoping to continue on that great legacy that Billy talked about.
So well said. It's urbana.org for more information on that. For me, what this assessment has done is really given us language at our church for not just describing our motivations, but even knowing how to call people, invite people into serving, like knowing even where to recruit them into. So I'm really grateful for that. Any other advice or encouragement for pastors when it comes to mobilizing their people towards service?
Thank you for asking that. So, first of all, yes, we have some resources to help you think about as a local church how to use our tool to help encourage to invite people into serving with your church on your campus, serving with your church off your campus, serving kind of under your church's discipleship, but maybe with a different parachurch ministry, maybe with a different project. And so our tool does a really good job of helping you have those conversations to invite people in. Again, using especially those 8 dimensions that you talked about, Eric. You're a driver. And so when someone knows that about you, the great invitation for you, you love to help move things forward, right? You love to face challenges,
Absolutely.
head on.
Yeah,
So you get bored when the work is really simple or routine, right? If
for
there's not a
sure.
problem to be solved, you're kind of like, well, why do you need me? That's your particular superpower, right? Your mix. And so your teammates, as they get to know you as this driver person, it's not the only way you show up, but it's a primary way you show up, that they're just really speaking kind of like it's your love language. It's your love language for serving, is you love to be able to use that hardwiredness of God to be a driver, face challenges, clearly defined goals, deadline. You like deadlines. You love giving deadlines. I mean, is this all true?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Spot
so
on.
that's your language. And when you know your other team member is a relator, one of the other 8, very different kind of wiring, and inviting that person into meeting needs, filling gaps, serving where most needed, perhaps, serving more directly with people in some way. So you have the relators, you have the drivers, there's different ones for achievers. There's even something called influencers. It's not what we think about in terms of like a social media influencer, but it does mean using, persuasive language for kingdom purposes. And so we love working with individuals to understand their particular top dimension and mix of top 2, top 3 dimensions, but also how to interact with others, how to interact with your congregation to invite them in to the life living in the way of Jesus, right? And doing that with joy, with fruitfulness. And so would love to connect with people, but you have all the tools yourself, Eric. If these are people who are your listeners, just reach out to Eric. He's got access to some of those tools as well. I would love to do a follow-up, like a training piece though too, because I've become very experienced of working with different leaders in churches and using some technology that every leader has access to leverage our tool as well. So all kinds of fun things we're working on, and looking forward to getting more time with you, Eric. And I know at this point we won't see you at Urbana yet, but if you happen to stop by, let's make sure we chat as well there.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for the time, Tim. Keep up your great work. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again, and blessings to you, to all your listeners, and to your ministry. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for the Innovative Church Leaders Podcast. Go to my website, ericbryant.org, for my newsletter and free resources.